We are so deeply honored to have with us tonight Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's spokesperson. She is the first black person, the first openly queer person, because who knows, there might have been other queer people that weren't so open. I could think of a few, but we'll just say that Karine is the first openly queer person in that role, the first immigrant, and she is a long-time advisor to President Biden. And as we heard earlier from Tish, she has served as a campaign manager and on the political staff of any number of campaigns here in New York City. She was born in Martinique and came here as a young girl and grew up here in New York City. So of all the identities, we love that you're a New Yorker. I recently read the book that you wrote, and I'm so deeply moved by it, and we're going to get a chance to speak a little bit about it, but I want to say a few more words about Karine and the role that she plays in our democracy today. We have to be aware that this universe in which we're in is filled with constant streams of disinformation, hate, and lies. Every single day, Karine Jean-Pierre stands behind the podium of the White House briefing room and tries to get this country to focus on facts, on truth, and on the actual things that are happening as waves of hate come streaming at you, and all of us are so much aware of what you have to absorb in the role that you play. Prior to her role on the campaign, and she's worked very closely with President Biden, the Biden campaign, and the Obama administration, Jean-Pierre served as Chief Public Affairs Officer for MoveOn.org, where many of us first got to know you as a public figure. And by the way, what you did with Kamala Harris at that event, do you remember that? She was on the stage interviewing Kamala Harris, and somebody jumped on the stage to attack Kamala Harris. And what does Karine Jean-Pierre do? She grabs the guy and protects Kamala Harris. Amazing. She leapt between this guy and Kamala Harris. That is just so badass. I just hope I don't have to do anything when you're up here like that. So as I said, that she was worked for MoveOn.org. She's been a commentator, of course, on MSNBC, where many of us know her from. And she has really, as an openly queer woman of color, claimed her place in American democracy. And we are so grateful to you. And like we've done the last few years, last year with Jeffrey Seller, and the year before that with Anthony Romero for the ACLU, instead of a speech, we're going to do this in conversation with me. So please, I'd like to invite Karine Jean-Pierre to join me, and I'd like us to give you a real CBST welcome.
Very serious.
She's very serious. Everybody here functions in 17 different roles. Barbara's the percussionist, and she is the teacher of our tech guy. Jason, can we say hello to Jason?
Hi, Jason.
Who is a high school student of Barbara Friedman's, everybody should know.
Thank you, Barbara.
So welcome. So happy to have you here tonight
you,
for any number of reasons. But let's start by talking about what the president did on this anniversary of the Dobbs decision. This is a community that cares deeply about reproductive justice, and tomorrow actually is the anniversary of the Dobbs decision, but because we're Jews, we start the night before, so it's actually the day of Shabbat. So can you tell us what the president did?
Sharon, if I may, can I say a couple of things?
Yes, absolutely.
I know this is your show, but can I just...
Your phone off.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me here this evening. It is an honor and a privilege to be sharing this moment, the spiritual moment with all of you, especially as we head into Pride Weekend in New York City and where we are currently in history in this moment. So I'm here sitting in front of you because of many, many reasons. My mom, my dad, who I come from, the history, my roots, but also the people who have had my back for these past couple of years. And I want to lift up a couple of people who are here. Randy, I want to lift you up. So I'm going to tell you a story. When the time came for the president to start thinking about who was going to replace my predecessor, Randy came to me and she said, I will do whatever you need. You tell me what you need me to do, and I will have your back and make sure that you get the position. And she also asked me, are you ready? Are you sure? And she did. She had my back, and she always has. I've known Randy for many, many years, and she's always been incredibly kind and supportive of my career. And so, Randy, thank you so much. And one of the reasons, besides all of you, and of course you, Sharon, that I said yes, is because Randy asked, because I said to her, I would do anything and go anywhere for Randy. So I love you, and I thank you.
She is the most dangerous person in the world, so you don't want to cross her.
According to a certain network, yes. And Tish, I love you so much. So I have learned a lot from Tish, the Attorney General, to be more appropriate. So I ran her public advocate race during the general election. I had the honor of doing that. And I knew the Attorney General before then and when she was a city council member. And I remember being a young political operative and watching her blaze through the city council and how brilliant she was and how incredible she was. And I remember as a young operative wanting to have the opportunity to work for you. And so when I had that opportunity when you were running for public advocate, I jumped on it. And what I've learned from you is your strength, your bravery, and you are an amazing orator. I love listening to you speak, but also your heart. And one of the things that I remember when I was running her campaign is we would go to the Bronx, we would go to Washington Heights, we would go to Brooklyn, we would go to Queens, anywhere in Manhattan, and people just loved Tish. And it's because every time she went out there, she led with love and heart. And so thank you for being a wonderful mentor and leader. And I wanted to say all of this is because it is important who lifts you up. It is important who has your back. It is important who you hear from day in and day out. And when you were introducing me, Sharon, you said three things. You said I am the first queer, the first immigrant, and the first person of color. And I represent a lot of communities. And those are the communities that help me get through the day. I feel those communities all the time, whether I'm in the streets, whether I'm, going to the grocery store, going to my kids' school. They come up to me and they tell me how much they appreciate me. Some folks come crying and tell me how important it is because guess what? Representation matters. So thank you so much for having me here this evening. It is beautiful to see the camaraderie, the community, and how you all come together every Friday for, many of you for 50 years, and what this place means and how important it is to the community. And I feel it. I feel it right here. So thank you.
I'm just verklempt. And I know you had a lot of experience working in Jewish districts, but I suspect the synagogues you dealt with and the rabbis you dealt with were a little bit different than this.
Very different. Very different.
Very different.
But Sharon, that says a lot about you. right? I mean, you
Well,
built
we're not
you
Borough
you
Park.
built this.
Yeah, we're not Borough Park, though. That's the thing, is we're not
No,
Borough
I
Park.
mean, you got to get your flowers. You got to get your flowers. Thank you for doing what you have done for the past 50 years.
And one of the key elements of us as a community is understanding we're links in a chain, which is, I think, something you deeply get. That the role that we play in the world is to be grateful to those on whose shoulders we stand, and to be really aware of those who are coming after us. So I'm wondering if you, before we go to the Dobbs decision, because we'll get back to Dobbs, we'll get back to that. But because of what you said before, maybe would you talk a little bit about your family and how you got to be the person you are? And I think a lot of us relate to coming from families that didn't initially accept us as LGBT people, and the journey that you've gone through, I think, would be very meaningful for people.
Thank you for reading my book. I appreciate that.
I love your book. Everybody, I left it in the back
Let's
of the
not
room.
be selling my book right now. I cannot do that as a government employee. But thank you for reading it. Asterisk.
And Karine actually reads it on Audible, by the way.
That's true.
She's the narrator on Audible. I'm not selling it, I'm just letting people know.
Okay. So writing my story, telling my story was actually very hard. It was a very difficult journey. I have a lot of ups and downs, as you know. And the reason why I tell my story is I hope that it helps many people that come behind me or who look up to me, and so they can hear and see someone who's gone through some incredibly difficult times, but made it through and succeeded. But I also made it through and succeeded because of my parents. As much as complicated that relationship is, and I think some of you may understand this, I love them dearly, and they've always supported me every day of my life, obviously. But when I came out, it was really hard. It was really hard. I was 16 years old, and it's actually a little bit of a long, convoluted story, but I was 16 years old. Both my parents are from Haiti.
We specialize in long, convoluted stories here.
I forgot where I am. And they're very conservative, grew up incredibly conservative. I went to Catholic school throughout my life, elementary, high school, and, you know, coming from where they came from, they came to this country, like many other immigrants, for the American dream and to make it, to try and make it. And of course, the American dream means different things to different people, and many people do not. Sometimes it's truly not a reality for many, so I want to put that out there. But when I came out to my mom, I said to her, "Mom, I'm a lesbian." She looked at me and she said, "I do not know what that is." And she has a very, very heavy Haitian accent. She looked at me and was completely confused. And I had to describe and give her the definition of what that was. She looked horrified and then proceeded to disappear and did not want to have the conversation again. And we did not talk about it for years. And so I essentially went back in the closet. But the beauty of my story is I've actually been out for almost my entire adult life. But it had to be in doses. It had to be with certain people. I had to be incredibly careful. And it's been a journey. So two other things that I want to say about my mom. We are incredibly close. I have a daughter. She loves her granddaughter, and she is on the other side of this in a big, big, big way. And it is love, love, love that I get from her now. And about a couple of years ago, I spoke to a cousin of mine who's older, and we talked about my story of coming out. And he said to me, "You know, the night that you told your mom that you were gay, she actually called me." And I had no idea, because I thought she didn't really understand what I was saying to her. And she said to me, he said to me that she said that she was so afraid for my life, that she was so concerned about what my life was going to turn out to be. And that was the fear. And it wasn't not accepting me, it was the fear. I'm a black woman. I'm an immigrant. Now I'm gay. So she was worried. But Mom, look at me now, right? I mean, I
think it's really important to remember that people change also, and that
They evolve.
that
People evolve.
not just us,
Yeah.
right? That people evolve, and the people evolve best when there's an environment in which we can hope and pray that they do, but that that love remains so deeply. So I have a very serious question. How do you not scream from behind that podium? How do you hold it together?
So a couple of things. When I walk into the White House, I'm always in awe. Because statistics say that I should not be there. I should not be in the office that I have. I should not be standing at the podium every day. I should just not be on the grounds. And so every time I walk on the White House campus, it is amazing. It is special. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I get to speak for the President of the United States, guys. And I get to speak for President Joe Biden. And what I mean by that is I would not be doing this job for anybody else. But this is someone that I've gotten to know, the Bidens, Dr. Biden, Joe Biden, I've gotten to know over the years. And what you see is what you get. Complete heart, understanding of where we are in this moment, and wanting to do good and change hearts and minds and really truly make a difference for people who have been left behind. And that's what you've seen. That's what you've seen in the last 2 years. So, to answer your question, it is easy for me to be at that podium because I can sleep at night because I know who I work for and I know exactly what we're doing every day.
And so maybe we can swing back to that first question, given that this is the anniversary of the Dobbs decision. Can you just tell us what the president did today?
So, wow, what happened a year ago, as all of you know, was devastating. Just think about it. Roe was the law of the land for nearly 50 years. And the Supreme Court justice took an action to take away freedoms from millions and millions of women, of people across the country because they wanted to. And then threatened to take away our rights and other people's rights. It doesn't stop there. And it was devastating. It is devastating. This is where we are in this country, the realities of where we are. And that's why we have to continue to speak up, and that's why we have to continue to fight. And that's what this president and this vice president is doing. So he signed an executive order. It's the third one that he signed in a year, trying to figure out how we can, on the federal level, continue to offer and protect access to contraception, access to reproductive health, which is incredibly important because since the Dobbs decision, we have seen stories after stories after stories about lives that have been lost because of this decision. And so this is the reality that we're in. So that's what he did today, continuing to take those efforts. He's going to continue to do everything that we can, but the reality is we need Congress to act and to restore Roe. That's what we need to happen. But you've seen this vice president who has been a leader in this. We've had state legislators, about 80 state legislators to the White House last week, some of whom were in blue states who have managed to fight some of these really horrible pieces of legislation, and some of them are in red states who some of these legislations have been enacted. Just think about it, more than 300 pieces of legislation across the country to take away freedom.
And I want to say for those who haven't seen, you've really been under attack for your representation of the president's position on trans rights.
Oh,
You have really been under attack for your position of such clarity about the rights of trans kids. And I know this congregation is very grateful to you and the president for those positions. And I know you've taken a lot of heat from people in the room with you there, as well as from various TV, how shall we say, networks, right, so. But speaking of TV, I'm gonna just switch, and we don't have a lot of time now. Is Gwen Marcus here? Gwen, are you here? There's Gwen Marcus.
Hey.
Gwen Marcus is the studio executive responsible for the L Word, who happens to be a CBST member.
Yeah.
So Gwen, so happy that you're here, because did you know that Karine Jean-Pierre had a cameo on? Of course you knew. So and then you had the L Word at the White House. How was that?
Well, again, representation matters, and I think, you know, when you have a platform, you got to use it. Yeah. You got to use it for good. And I am lucky to have a platform, a podium, and the president allows me to use that for good. And I got to meet the original cast, actually the cast of the current version of the L Word and the original cast when we were out in LA a couple months, less than a year ago. And Eileen is just phenomenal, the co-creator of the L Word, and we became friends very quickly. And one of the days that we were in LA, I had dinner with her, and she was like, "Hey, so we're filming the final episode of the L Word, Generation Q, right?" And she was like, "Would you like to come to go see it, to go watch the final season or the final show?" And I said, "Sure." We drove like an hour from where we were in LA, and I show up, and I didn't know anything. I'm not a Hollywood person, and it says Beth and Tina's wedding, and I'm like, "Wait, what's happening here? They're getting married?" And she was like, "Yes, but if you say anything, we have to kill you." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And so we show up in Malibu. I get to see them get married, and then they're telling me, "Well, do you want to be part of the wedding crew?" And I'm like, "Sure." The guest list, and I'm sure. So anyway, there's a cameo. The things that happen in your life that you never think that would happen. And so I end up in the L Word. But anyway, fast forward. Just a cameo, folks. Just a cameo. Clothes on. It was all good. So fast forward to April, and I had wanted to invite them to come to the White House because I know how many generations that they have touched with their story and how much the L Word has just changed the way we see the community and also saved lives. That show has saved lives. And so it was Lesbian Visibility Week, which I didn't know existed.
Yeah, who knew there was a Lesbian Visibility Week, huh?
So that happened. So they came, and it was incredibly powerful. If you all have not seen the three characters, the main characters, Bet, Alice, and Shane, those are the characters that came, along with Eileen, who is a co-creator, as I mentioned. Just talk about the community and what it's meant for them and what their characters have meant for them and others. It is incredibly powerful. It's emotional. It is one of probably the most impactful moments that I think has happened in that room. You should take a look. It will move you.
So Gwen Marcus, would you stand up so we can give you applause? Yeah. Gwen is responsible.
Gwen, thank you. Thank you, Gwen. Representation matters.
So we have to wrap it up so we could return to our service and continue this Pride. But we're a 501c3 religious organization, so we can't endorse a candidate for office.
So here's the good thing. I can't actually talk about it.
Okay,
as a government
right.
official, I can't even talk about campaigns
We're
or 2024.
not talking about campaigns.
So
Who's talking about? I'm not talking about a campaign. No,
so we see each other. We're here.
We are here together. But we are deeply engaged in a commitment to the future of our country, of our world, deeply committed to the issues of justice. And I'm wondering what you could say. We have a lot of young people who are here today, too. I mean, you were born after this synagogue was founded, which is pretty moving. That when this synagogue started, nobody could have imagined Karine Jean-Pierre. And here you are. So I'm wondering if you would speak to the young people in our community, and how would you give people strength and hope to take the struggle further and to hang in even when things are really difficult?
So, a couple things. You know, you mentioned 50 years and all of the work that you all have done and the social justice issues that you all have worked on, which is incredibly important as we move our story along. And even with me at the podium, even with the work that you've done, Sharon, you look at where we have been the last year or two, and it's scary. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly scary. You think about state houses, more than 600 pieces of legislation that are anti-LGBTQ legislation that are out there across the country. Hundreds of those are anti-transgender, especially hitting our transgender kids. I remember a couple of months ago, I was speaking at an event for an organization, and after I spoke, I was saying hello to a lot of people and just thanking them for the work that they were doing, and most of them were volunteers. I met two moms, separate of each other, and one was from Oklahoma, one was from Texas, and they literally told me the same story, didn't know each other. And their story was that they were a mom living in this state, and they were trying to protect their trans kid. And they didn't know what else to do except leave the state. This is where we are. Yeah. One of the reasons why this administration fights the way that we do, one of the reasons why we are unapologetic about what we say and very purposeful about what we say when we say transgender rights are human rights, because they are. And so what I will say to young people is that you should not have to be brave to be who you are. We see you, we love you, and you are exactly who you need to be in this moment. You are exactly who you need to be in this moment. Don't let anyone take that away from you. And if you feel that you're alone, just think about this president, just think about me, just think about Sharon, just think about Randy, think about Tish. There's so many people out here who love you and will protect you and will do everything that we can to protect you. Live your true self, love yourself, love each other. Be who you are. Be who you are.